We were discussing the Cūḻavedalla Sutra of the Majjhima Nikaya. You have the translation there, no? You all have that translation? I hope you have it. Now, in this sutra, just to remind you, last time I said this, that we have been talking about two people who are having a conversation. There has been a husband and wife, but the wife renounced and became a nun. And not only became a nun, the wife also practiced meditation and attained the highest point, which is becoming an arahant. So the wife became an arahant. Oh, thank you. So, later, yeah. And the husband, still a layman, he comes and asks questions from the former wife, not a wife anymore now. She has become an arahant. And so the wife begins to answer questions. So we already discussed some of the questions, the starting point, but today we are going a little further because there were a lot of questions asked. Even today we can't finish all the questions. So we'll be doing only a few of the questions, and the other questions will come next time. So today the question is about samadhi. You know the word samadhi. Samadhi is usually translated as concentration. But that is a wrong translation. Samadhi is not concentration. So there are a lot of misunderstandings about samadhi today, and this discussion here will clear many mistaken ways of thinking about samadhi. And that is the benefit of going through this. Of course, here in the translation, the translators have made mistakes by using the wrong words. Now we have already discussed that the modern translations given originally by Rice Davids, I.B. Horner, F.L. Woodward and people like that, there are a lot of mistakes in those translations because they have been using the wrong words to translate the Pali words. Because the Buddha spoke in Pali, not in English. So the translators, if they use the wrong words, the meaning is not properly conveyed. Now here, we just read the translation as it is, and then I begin to correct and provide the more meaningful word for it. Here we are going on to page 398 or 3. Yeah, 398 and then that's the one. And the last paragraph here, and there is a heading there, concentration. There is a heading in the last paragraph, concentration. Now, the real word, Pali word is samadhi. And now the question comes as lady. Lady is the word that is being used by the translator. And the word used in Pali is ayya. Now, our Sinhalese language, ayya is used, but that means the elder brother is called ayya. But here in Pali, the word ayya means respectful way of addressing a nun. It's like the word Bhante. Now when you say Bhante, that is something like reverend, and it's a respectful word that is used to refer to a monk. Now, in a similar way, the respectful word used to refer to a nun is ayya. So, here he translates it as lady. Lady also is a fairly respectful word in English. So that's why I think he's using the word lady. So the question is, lady, what is concentration? So in other words, he's asking, what is samadhi? That is the question. What is samadhi? And not only that, what is the basis of concentration? What is the equipment of concentration? What is the development of concentration? But those words, I think, are the wrong words they are using. What is the basis? what is the equipment and what is the development. So I have given different words for these things. That is very important to understand. The Pali words here, what is samadhi and what is the nimitta? Some of you may be familiar with that word nimitta. Now some people say when you begin to practice samadhi, you must have a nimitta. And the word nimitta really refers to the object of concentration. That nimitta, they say there must be a nimitta. And many people ask, what is the nimitta when you practice concentration? But we are not talking about concentration, we are talking about samadhi, and samadhi has a nimitta. Nimitta is what are you going to focus on. It is like the word target. Now if you are going to shoot, you shoot at the target. So the nimitta is something like what you are focusing your attention on. That is the meaning of nimitta. And then, what is the basis? Now, that word basis is the word that he uses for the word nimitta. So he has been using the word basis for the Pali word nimitta. Then he asks, what is the equipment? The Pali word is parikkara. The Pali word is parikkara. Now, it is very important to understand the word parikkara. Parikkara means, what is, my goodness, there are mosquitoes here. I'm not supposed to kill them, huh? But mosquito is trying to bite me. But anyway, the problem is that parikkara means something that accompanies, accompaniments. It is like accompaniment. That means now there is a thing called dana, that people offer to the Sangha. You are familiar with that word dana. And they have dana, their main thing is offering of food to the monks. But there is also parikar. They have that word. We of course, in Sinhalese, we don't use the Pali word, we call it pirikara. Their pirikara is the same thing as parikar. The Pali is parikar, and Sanskrit it is parishkar. That is the difference. But in Sinhalese we call it pirikara. But what it means is what comes along with that. That means the offering is the food, but in addition to the food, you may be offering some other things like a robe or maybe a bowl, or maybe today people offer also money, put it in, what do you, rangpang or something you call it, huh? That is also part of the parikar. Parikar means what accompanies that main thing. What accompanies the main thing. So here, parikar refers to what is it that you concentrate on or focus your attention on, and what are the other accompanying things. What accompanies the focusing. And then another question, bhavana. Bhavana is cultivation. You cultivate. It is like if you are planting a seed, now you are planting a seed so that it will grow. And so you might have to attend to that by pouring water into it or any other kind of manure, various things that are necessary to get it to grow. So that is for the growth and development. So, when speaking about samadhi, these three other questions are asked. What is the nimitta? What is it that you are focusing on? And what are the things that accompany this? And how does it grow and develop? That is it. So, when we talk about the nimitta, it is very important to understand this. Most people think nimitta is when you keep on concentrating, you begin to see a light or something, and then you might begin to hallucinate and get all kinds of things, because very often you enter the hypnotic state when you begin to concentrate. And it was what is called the Braid's method of hypnosis is to get a person to concentrate on something. And as the person begins to concentrate, that person might see the nimittas as hallucinations. So this is very important to understand. But here, when this question about nimitta is asked, now that question is answered. The question is answered. Unification of mind, friend Visakha, is concentration. That person who is asking the question is called Visakha. And unification of mind is concentration. The word unification of mind, Chittassa ekaggata, that is the Pali word, ekaggata. Ekagga means, eka means one, agga means end, one end. So that is why it is translated as unification. That word unification of mind is ekaggata. There is one end. Because the mind is unified, but that is a good translation there. Unification. Because I explain this as there is a word used in modern psychology. It is called cognitive dissonance and cognitive consonance. Cognitive dissonance means the mind being divided into two different goals, two goals. That means one part of the mind wants to go in one direction, the other part of the mind wants to go in another direction. Two goals. Say you are sleeping and you have an alarm in your clock, and your sleeping alarm rings. Now the alarm rings means that you have to get up. But then you feel lazy to get up, you want to sleep a little more. That means your mind is now going in two different directions. One part of your mind wants to get up, the other part of your mind wants to sleep. That is the cognitive dissonance. But in this state of samadhi, there is no such cognitive dissonance. There is what is called cognitive consonance. That means the mind is not divided into two, there is only one mind. So in the samadhi state, the mind is unified. So that word unification is a good translation. The unification of mind is samadhi. So samadhi is explained as the unification of the mind. And then he says, he uses the word foundation to translate parikkara. But I don't think that is the proper translation. Parikkara is what are the things that accompany this thing called unification of mind. What are the things that come with it? And so, he says, the four foundations of mindfulness are the basis of concentration. Now, there he uses the word basis to translate the word parikkara. But what is really meaning is, what accompanies this focusing of attention is satipatthana. I have explained that satipatthana is the introversion of attention. The introversion means to focus the attention within. So, satipatthana, there are four things on which you focus your attention. Four things. Focus your attention on the body, focus your attention on how the body feels, focus your attention on the emotional state, and focusing your attention on the thoughts that come to the mind. So, four things you focus your attention on. So, in this, it is very important to understand that the nimitta, is where you focus your attention on. And the nimitta here is satipatthana. You understand? So the nimitta is focusing, where you focus your attention on is not something outside. It is not on a light or any other thing like that. Your attention is focused on the body, the feeling in the body, the emotional state, whether you are angry or greedy or fearful or worried. your emotional state, you're focusing attention, and the thought that arises in the mind. So the attention is focused on those four things, not even one thing. You are not focusing your attention on one thing. There are four things on which you focus your attention. So it's not like concentration. Concentration means you are focusing your attention on one thing. Here the attention is on four things. So it is not really concentration, but being aware of. That is the better word. Being aware of is different from concentration. You can be aware of four things. But if you concentrate, you are aware of just one thing. You are focusing your attention on one thing. So here the focus of attention is on four things, which means you are not concentrating, you are simply aware of these things. Then he says, four foundations of mindfulness are the basis of it, and four right kinds of striving are the equipment of concentration. Now, equipment, I said, is the accompaniments. What accompanies this? What accompanies this focusing of attention within? If you are going to focus your attention within, what are the things you have to do? What? No, it is to withdraw your attention from external things. You have to take your attention away from focusing on external things, because your attention has to go to what is going on inside you. So you have to withdraw your attention from external things that you see or hear or smell or taste or touch. So you are withdrawing your attention from what you see, hear, smell, taste, touch. That is what is called guarding the senses. Guarding the senses is the first thing. But that is not all. Because your attention can go to something else. What is that? Your attention can go to what you have seen yesterday, or maybe day before, or even a month before, or even a year before. So everything connected with the past, you have to take your attention away, not only what is seen or heard now, but what you have seen before in the past. And there is another thing, that is thinking of something that might happen in the future. The future has not even happened, but you begin to imagine what is going to happen in the future. Past doesn't exist, the future doesn't exist. Even the present doesn't exist, because it is changing every fraction of a second. So you have to take your attention away from all that before you can focus your attention on what is going on within, now, in the present. You are in the present, but directed inwards, not outwards. So that is what samadhi is all about. So samadhi has a focus of attention, and there are accompaniments where you withdraw your attention from other things, and then you also have to maintain it. That is the fourth step. You have to maintain that. That means you are not just focusing your attention internally for 1 second, not even 2 seconds, not even 1 minute, not even 1 hour, not even 1 day, but for all the time. So that means all the time you have to be focusing your attention inwards. That is the important thing. So you see what samadhi is all about is very well explained here. Now another question comes up. A very interesting thing is, a question about formations. The word here that is being used is formation. But that word formation also is misleading. The Pali word for that is sankhara. And you have heard the word sankhara means construction. So instead of construction, they are using the word formation. You see the difference. Construction and formation doesn't mean the same thing. So here we are talking about construction. And now the question is, lady, how many formations are there? Asking the nun. Now, so the answer is, there are these 3 formations, friend Vaisakha. The bodily formation, the verbal formation, and the mental formation. There are 3 kinds of sankhara or construction. Three kinds of construction. Now that is, construction is the word here. What are these 3 kinds of construction? There is the bodily construction, the verbal construction, and the mental construction. So one construction is physical, bodily means physical, and the other construction is verbal, and the third one is mental. So then he asks, what is this bodily construction? What is the verbal construction? What is the mental construction? Then he says, in-breathing and out-breathing is the bodily construction. So breathing in and out is the bodily construction. And applied thought and sustained thought, the verbal construction. Perception and feeling is the mental formation, mental construct. Now again we have to retranslate that. You see, the in and out breathing is okay. Breathing in and breathing out is the physical one. Then the verbal one, these are the Pali words of vitakka and vichara. I said vichara means asking a question. And vitakka is answering the question. If you say, what is this? That is a question. This is a bottle. That means that is the answer. That means we form a concept. This is what is called conceptual thinking. We are forming a concept. And when we form a concept, we ask a question and we answer the question. What is this? This is breathing in. What is this? This is breathing out. What is this? This is pain. What is this? This is comfort. So everything that you describe, that description is a concept. You are forming a concept. When you see something, that is a percept. To see is to perceive something. To form a concept is to conceive something. So there is a difference between perception and conception. You may see the bottle, but you may not ask the question or even answer the question. Seeing the bottle is perception, then forming the concept, this is a bottle, is a concept. So that conceptual thinking is what here the Buddha called verbal construction. Why is it called verbal construction? Because you have formed a word. bottle is a word. So you have formed a word, you have not said it in speech, but you have already formed the concept. So every time you use a word, first you have to form the concept before you can use the word to talk. So whenever we talk, we first form a concept. And in forming the concept, we are also forming a sentence. So the sentence will have a subject, an object, and a verb. So we have a subject, object, and verb in the sentence. But all those are words. But first we have to form the word in our mind before we can speak out. So the word, that is why that forming of the concept is a verbal construction. So that is why it is called a verbal construction. Although it is really a mental thing, but it is verbal because it is in words. And but when we perceive, in the process of perception, we are seeing a bottle. Although we have not even used the word bottle, we see the bottle. And in that seeing, there are two parts. What you see and how you feel about what you see. What you see may be the bottle, but how you feel about it is, you might like the bottle or you might hate the bottle. That is how you feel about the bottle. So that is what is called Vedana and Sanya. The word Vedana is the feeling part. Sanya refers to what you see, or that is called a sensation. Now it is wrongly translated as perception. It is not a perception, it is a sensation. So the most basic thing that you see is a sensation. Perception is the creation of the object. The construction part has to come before you can perceive. So the perception comes after construction. So that is why it is important to use the right words. If you don't use the right words, you will be mistranslating the whole thing. So the Buddha is not just an ordinary stupid person. He has been analyzing all these things properly and using the right words. And if the translator uses the wrong words, the idea is not conveyed. This is why it is very important to use the right words. So here, what is the time now?
Still early.
Huh?
Still early. Carry on.
Okay. Now, so the sankara, the construction, so what is the bodily formation? And it's all explained. Now another question comes. Friend Visakha, in breathing and out-breathing are bodily, these are states. We already discussed that. Now comes, how does the attainment of the cessation of perception and feeling come to be? Now this is a very important thing that you may not be fully aware of this, but the Buddha became a Buddha not by just sitting under a tree and formulating a theory. That is not what it is. He had to stop this thing called thinking. He had to stop this activity called mind. Mind is an activity and not an entity. The mind is not an entity but an activity. That is the important thing. Most people think mind and body are two entities. But what the Buddha points out is, there is only one entity that we talk about, and that is the body. And what we call the mind is an activity of the body. The body is like a machine, really. This body is a biological machine. It is not a man-made machine. Very often people think it is not man-made, it is God-made. But here the point is, it's not God-made either. It is a thing that happens due to the presence of the necessary conditions. That is what we call a natural construction. It is naturally happening. Naturally happening means it happens only due to the presence of the necessary conditions. When the necessary conditions are present, something happens. That is what is called determinism. Determinism is every natural occurrence occurs only due to the presence of the necessary conditions. And that is what is called determinism. So in ancient times, people thought everything that happens in nature happens because God is doing that, or a devil is doing that. They thought there are these supernatural beings called gods and devils who have supernatural powers and they can control nature. But gradually, as people became more and more intelligent, they began to doubt these things, and ultimately they began to discover a very important law, and that is the law of determinism. And it is when this law was discovered that this thing called science came into being. And when this law was discovered, they lost faith in the religious dogmas. And they had revolutions like the British Revolution, the French Revolution, the Marxist Revolution. All these revolutions came up because they lost faith in the religious dogmas. And that was a complete turn of the minds of people. And when that happens, that period in the history of Western civilization, it was called the Age of Enlightenment. The Age of Enlightenment was somewhere in the 18th century. So, it is in this age of enlightenment that people began to think in a different way. But unfortunately, the age of enlightenment didn't bring all suffering to an end. Wars began to increase. Today the most important thing is war. And they want to encourage war because the population is too much now and they want to kill all the people so that only some people will remain and enjoy life. You see, some people become rich as a result of the war. Some people, of course, they die. So that is how it is. Now this is because although the intelligence improved, our emotions didn't improve. So we are carried away by emotions. And the more we are carried away by emotions, the world will be destroyed. That is what people are frightened of. They are in fear that the world will be destroyed by this method. But it was the Buddha, long before, discovered this law of determinism. That is what is called paticca samuppada. But although he discovered this same law, he didn't make machines. He didn't make electric lights. He didn't make these air conditioners. He didn't make motor vehicles. He didn't make airplanes. Why? Because he knew that we have a problem, that our desires cannot be satisfied. That is the problem. And so, we cannot accept what is going on in the world. And that is why we begin to cry and lament. Because we want to stop growing old. We want to stop falling sick. And we want to stop dying. But it cannot be done, unfortunately. That means we have to suffer. So what the Buddha saw was, instead of people changing the world to satisfy the desires, which is what science is doing. Science is trying to change the world to suit the desires. But the Buddha saw a different solution. That is to change our mind and be able to accept the realities of life without crying and lamenting. If we can change our mind, that is the meaning of all this meditation. And that is why we are talking about this. So, that attainment of cessation means a gradual stopping of the mental process. That is what the Buddha did. He stopped this thing called the mind. Mind is an activity and not an entity. And that activity can be stopped. And this is why this question comes up. What is the attainment of the cessation of perception and feeling? That is how, that means when we read this, you'll begin to understand. Now the answer is, friend Visakha, when a bhikkhu is attaining the cessation of perception and feeling, it does not occur to him, I shall attain the cessation of perception and feeling, or I am attaining the cessation of perception and feeling, or I have attained the cessation of perception and feeling. His mind has previously being developed in such a way that it leads him to that state. That means that state of stopping that process of perception is not done by a willpower. It is not done by thinking, now I will stop this. No. It is all done by letting go. That is the most important thing to understand. Because he tried all kinds of methods to stop this, and he failed. And so what he did was, because he has been giving up things, all what are called paramitas. The paramita really means qualification. You are qualifying. So to become a Buddha is not an easy job. You have to qualify. Just as if you want to get a PhD or something like that in a university, you have to qualify for that. So in the same way, if you want to become a Buddha, you have to qualify for that. And that qualification is the paramitas. But that qualification is not a doing. That is the important thing to understand. If you try to do it, you cannot do it. Because we are going on a wrong assumption. The wrong assumption is that you are existing as a person to do it. But there are no persons in this world to do anything. Not even a god or a devil, not even yourself. Everything is happening according to this law of determinism, which means it happens only when the necessary conditions are present. And therefore, you cannot do anything. The only thing is to stop doing. Stop trying to do, because you can't do. You are only trying to do things. So even to get rid of the emotions, we cannot get rid of the emotions by doing it. We have to undo everything that we are trying to do. You have to give up. And that is how the Buddha was able to, first thing is to give up all emotional excitements. Then your body relaxes completely and the mind calms down. The body relaxes and the mind calms down. All emotional excitements disappear. And when all emotional excitements disappear, you are in the first jhana. So So jhana is what I call ecstasy. The word ecstasy means, ek means outside. Stasy is to stand. Standing out. That means you are standing out of the world of emotions. You have come out of the world of emotions. Coming out of the world of emotions is standing out. That is the first jhana. So the first jhana is to stop all emotional excitements. So when the emotions are stopped, what remains? Complete peace of mind. So complete peace of mind is what is called piti. Piti, some people translate it as a kind of emotional excitement. It is not an emotional excitement, it is a complete absence of emotional excitements. The better word is simply peace of mind. So the real piti is peace of mind. And when the mind is at peace in this way, the body relaxes. And when the body relaxes, the body feels comfortable. And when the body feels comfortable, the mind is one-pointed now. Mind is unified. The cognitive dissonance disappears and there is cognitive consonance. So that is the first jhana, the first ecstasy. Then the next step is you are still aware, you are forming a concept. You form the concept, I have entered the first jhana. That is the concept. Now you give up that concept also. Stop questioning, stop answering, and then you get on to a more relaxed state, a more calm state. Although you are not emotionally excited, but still there is a more peaceful state. And that is the second jhana, second ecstasy. Now step by step you can go back again. You are going back. You are not going forward, you are going back. Giving up. So now you have no conceptual thinking, but still you have that peace of mind, mental peace. You begin to see that peace of mind is also a very subtle form of excitement. And then you give up that also. Then you are left with comfort in the body. Then you begin to see that even that comfort is a slight excitement. You give up that also. And then your mind is focused within. You lose your attention on what you see. Now your attention is not on what you see. Your attention is on how you see. In other words, your attention is on the process of perception. And that attention on the process of perception is what is what is the word we use for that? Huh?
The 5 constituents?
No. The looking within, introspection. The full introspection. What is the Pali word for that? Upekka. That's right. Upekka. Upa-ikkati. Upekka means, upa means inside, ikkati means seeing. You are seeing what is inside. And what is inside is not what you see, but how you see. The process of perception and not what you perceive. So you enter the first jhana. Then when you begin to become aware of what you see, you are not aware of what you see. If you are not aware of what you see, what are you aware of? Empty space. What you are aware of is nothing, empty space. Empty space is what is called akasananchayatana. The sphere of infinite nothing, infinite space, empty space. Then you begin to focus on the process of perception. When you begin to focus on the process of perception, that is called Vijñānañcāyatana. Vijñānañcāyatana means your attention is on the process of perception. Then you give up that also, let go of that. Then What are you focusing on? You are focusing on nothing. That is called akinchanyayatana. You are focusing on nothing. Now, akinchanyayatana is focusing on nothing, but nothing becomes an object there. So you want to give up that also. You give up even nothing. Then you get into that state called neither sensation nor feeling. No, neither sensation nor no sensation. It's a halfway. That is called the threshold of consciousness. And then from there on, you give up that also, and there comes the cessation of sensation and feeling. The complete stopping. But that stopping is done not by doing something, but by giving up something. All this is done by letting go, giving up. A complete giving up. A termination. A termination of all activities. It is not doing something. It is not doing something. So it is in that not doing that you enter that state called the cessation of sensation and perception. And in that state, that person is not aware of anything. Earlier I was using the word unconsciousness, so people began to criticize that. So then I chose the new word, and that is insentience. Insentience means there is no sentience, means there is no sensation or feeling. Insentience. No sensation or feeling. That state of insentience that person is not dead. The difference between a person who has entered that state of insentience is that the dead body doesn't have what is called the metabolism, and it doesn't have the temperature in the body. But in this person who has entered that state, what is called metabolism is there, and then the temperature is there. That is the difference. This is something like that state called hibernation. Some animals, during the winter time, they get into a state called hibernation. In that state, they don't have the consciousness going. So it's like a dead body, but it's not a dead body. So it's something similar to that. Some bears in Australia get into that, huh? Have you heard of that? Some animals in Australia hibernate. So it's something similar to that. But the interesting thing is, you can come out of that also. Automatically it comes out. Because the body doesn't want to stay forever in that state. The body tries to come out automatically. So, being in that state is the difficulty. But what happened was, when the Buddha stopped that, was there any knowledge? There was no knowledge of any kind. That is the meaning of avijja. The word avijja means no knowledge of any kind. And then he comes back again when he wakes up from that state. He begins to observe how the mind is gradually creating the world that is aware of. So it is the mental process that begins what is called perception. And with the perception, it goes further into what is called conception. So the perception grows into conception. You form a concept. And once you have formed the concept, you begin to perceive and conceive the objective world. And when the objective world has been conceived, the feeling arises. Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feeling. And it is that feeling that creates two parts of the experience. The experience is divided into two. And that division is what we call a break into two, a subjective and objective. So there is a subjective and an objective in the experience. Object is seen as something outside, And the subjective part is seen as something inside. That means we begin to react to what we see. The reaction is seen as something inside. And what we see is seen as something outside. So that is how the subjective part is then personalized. We personalize the subjective. Personalize is to say, this is mine. So the subjective part is personalized and called mine. The moment you call it mine, you have created an I. How can you have a mind without an I? The I comes into being automatically. But when the I comes into being, you have come into being. The I is the you. So once you have come into being, then you ask the question, what do I call myself? What is it that I call myself? Where is the self? There is nothing else to call myself other than the body. So the body becomes the self. When the body becomes the self, body is something that occupies space and time. So when the body has become the self, then the self is occupying space and time. When the body becomes the self, it is not only having a volume. Volume is how much space it occupies. But it is not only having a volume, it has a past, present and future. And what is the past of the body? Past of the body is birth. Birth is the part of the body. What is the future of the body? Future is death. And in between the birth and the death is that process called aging. So there is birth, there is aging, and there is death. For the self, how can the self get this thing? Birth, aging and death. Because the body became the self. If the body did not become the self, there will be no birth, aging and death for the self. So by calling the body the self, we are having this thing called birth, aging and death. And the moment birth, aging and death comes up, there is grief, lamentation, pain, distress and exhaustion. That is the dukkha. Time up. Oh, we have just entered the time. So no time for questions. Okay, so then we'll have to bring this to an end.